First Contact Proto-Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the UES Defiance, watching the swirling nebula of the Kepler sector paint the darkness in shades of purple and gold. 3 months into humanity's first deep space exploration mission, her crew had mapped 17 star systems and documented countless phenomena that would keep Earth scientists busy for decades. What they hadn't expected to find was company. "Captain, we're picking up multiple contacts on long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb from the bridge. His voice carried that particular tension that came with the unknown. "Configuration suggests artificial origin. Definitely not natural phenomena." Sarah's reflection in the viewport showed a woman in her 40s, with prematurely grey hair and the kind of steady eyes that had seen her through the Mars colony crisis and the asteroid belt conflicts. She had been chosen to lead this mission, precisely because she could think clearly under pressure. That skill was about to be tested in ways no human had ever experienced. "How many contacts, Webb?" she asked, already moving toward the bridge. 17 confirmed, possibly more. They're maintaining formation approximately 2 light minutes out. "Captain, their energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. These aren't human vessels." The bridge fell silent as Sarah entered. Her crew of 43 had trained for this possibility, but theory and reality were vastly different creatures. Around her, men and women who had served in conflicts across the solar system now faced the prospect of humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. "Put it on the main screen," Sarah ordered, settling into her command chair. The view screen flickered to life, showing distant points of light arranged in what was unmistakably a military formation. Even at this distance, the ships appeared massive, their hulls gleaming with an oily, iridescent quality that suggested advanced metallurgy. "Analysis, Dr. Patterson." Sarah turned to her chief science officer, a brilliant xenobiologist who had spent her career preparing for this moment. Dr. Elena Patterson's fingers danced across her console. "The energy output suggests fusion-based propulsion, but there are readings I can't identify. The ships themselves appear to be at least twice the size of our largest vessels. Captain, we're looking at a technology base that's significantly more advanced than ours." Before Sarah could respond, the communications array crackled to life. A voice, artificially translated by systems that had learned the language in real time, filled the bridge. "Unknown vessels, you have entered sovereign space of the Zephyrian Empire. State your identification and purpose immediately." Sarah exchanged glances with her crew. The translation was clear, but the tone was unmistakably authoritative. These weren't explorers like themselves. These were conquerors. "Open a channel," Sarah commanded. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Defiance. We are on a peaceful exploration mission from the Sol system. We were not aware this sector was claimed territory." The response came after a pause that felt like hours. "Sol system is not recognized in Imperial databases. You will prepare for boarding and inspection. Resistance will be met with appropriate force." Lieutenant Commander Webb leaned forward. "Captain, they're moving to intercept. Estimated time to contact, 47 minutes. Sarah's mind raced. First contact protocols had been debated for decades, but they all assumed some level of diplomatic courtesy. This felt more like being pulled over by cosmic police. "Do we have any indication of their weapons capabilities?" "Energy weapons signatures are consistent with plasma-based systems," reported Ensign Taylor from the weapons station. "But Captain, their power output is enormous. If they're hostile, we're severely outgunned. Dr. Patterson looked up from her console. Captain, I'm detecting something odd. Their formation is textbook Imperial doctrine, but it's designed for intimidation rather than tactical advantage. They're trying to impress us with their size and numbers. Sarah smiled grimly. Then they don't know much about humans, do they? Webb, bring us to full alert. All hands to battle stations. But nobody fires unless fired upon. As the Defiance's crew moved with practiced efficiency, Sarah activated the ship's advanced AI system. Arya, analyze all available data on the approaching vessels. I want to know everything about their capabilities, their formation, their likely intentions. The AI's voice was calm and reassuring. Analysis complete. Captain, the Zephyrian vessels are indeed formidable, but their tactics suggest they rely heavily on superior firepower and intimidation. Their formation has several exploitable weaknesses. Exploitable? How? Their ships are designed for overwhelming assault against technologically inferior opponents. They're not optimized for fighting enemies who might employ unconventional tactics. Sarah's smile widened. Throughout human history, being underestimated had often been humanity's greatest advantage. Arya, prepare contingency protocols. If this goes badly, I want options. The alien fleet continued its approach, and soon the view screen showed the ships in detail. They were beautiful in their alien way, with flowing lines that suggested both elegance and menace. Each vessel was marked, with symbols that pulsed with internal light, and energy fields shimmered around their hulls like aurora. Captain, Dr. Patterson said quietly, I'm reading massive energy buildups in their weapon systems. They're not just posturing anymore. The communication channel crackled again. Human vessel, you will lower your defensive screens and prepare. For boarding, this is not a request. Sarah stood, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never backed down from a fight. Zephyrian Empire, this is Captain Chen. We are peaceful explorers, but we are not defenseless. We will not submit to boarding by hostile forces. The pause this time was longer. When the voice returned, it carried a note of surprise. You would resist the might of the Empire, your single primitive vessel against our fleet. We would defend ourselves against any aggressor, Sarah replied calmly, but we prefer to resolve this peacefully. We're willing to discuss terms for safe passage through your territory. A new voice joined the conversation, older and more measured. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Imperial Third Fleet. Human, you display either courage or foolishness. Our sensors indicate your vessel is armed, but your weapons are crude kinetic systems. You cannot hope to stand against Imperial plasma arrays. Sarah nodded to Webb, who activated a pre-planned sequence. Around the Defiance, space itself seemed to shimmer as the ship's experimental stealth systems engaged. To the Zephyrians, the human vessels suddenly became much harder to track. Admiral, Sarah said, you're correct that our weapons are different from yours, but you might be surprised at what humans can accomplish when we're motivated. On the alien flagship, alarms began to sound. The human ship had vanished from primary sensors, appearing only as a ghost on secondary systems. Admiral Kethvar's mandibles clicked in agitation. How are they masking their signature? He demanded of his tactical officer. Unknown, Admiral. Their energy output suggests primitive technology, but they're employing countermeasures we haven't encountered before. Kethvar had conquered 17 star systems for the Empire. He had faced races with superior technology, others with fierce warrior cultures, and still others with cunning beyond measure. But he had never encountered a species that could make his senses lie to him. "Maintain formation," he ordered. "Prepare full spectrum scans. These humans are using some form of technological deception." Back on the Defiance, Sarah watched the alien fleet's confusion with satisfaction. "Arya, how are they reacting? Their tactical formations are becoming increasingly defensive. They're running deep scans, trying to penetrate our stealth systems. Captain, I believe they're beginning to reassess their initial assumptions about human capabilities." Sarah activated the communication channel again. "Admiral Kethvar, as you can see, we're not as primitive as you initially believed. We're still willing to discuss peaceful resolution of this situation." The response was immediate and sharp. "What technology are you employing?" "Our sensors show impossible readings." "Human technology," Sarah replied simply, "developed through centuries of conflict and innovation. We've learned to adapt, to overcome obstacles that seem insurmountable. It's what we do." Dr. Patterson leaned over to Sarah's chair. "Captain, I'm detecting increased communication traffic between their vessels. They're conferring about us." The alien fleet's formation shifted, becoming more spread out and defensive. Admiral Kethvar was no fool. He had encountered enough species to know that any race capable of fooling Imperial sensors was dangerous, regardless of their apparent technological level. "Human Captain," Kethvar's voice was more respectful now. "You speak of centuries of conflict. Are you a warrior species?" Sarah considered her answer carefully. "We are a species that has learned to survive. We've fought among ourselves, conquered our own world's challenges, and earned our place among the stars. We don't seek conflict, but we've never surrendered to it either." Admiral Sarah continued, "Your fleet is impressive, and I have no doubt you could destroy our ship if you chose to. But the question is, what would that cost you, and what would you gain?" The communication channel fell silent for several minutes. When Kethvar spoke again, his tone was thoughtful. "You are suggesting negotiation rather than conquest." "I'm suggesting that two intelligent species should be able to find common ground without bloodshed," Sarah replied. "We have much to offer each other: knowledge, perspective, the benefits of cooperation rather than conflict." Lieutenant Commander Webb looked up from his console with surprise. "Captain, the alien fleet is powering down their weapon systems." Sarah felt a surge of hope. Perhaps humanity's first contact with alien intelligence wouldn't end in violence after all. But she also knew that this was only the beginning. The Zephyrian Empire was vast, and Admiral Kethvar represented only a small part of it. "Admiral," she said, "I propose a formal meeting. One representative from each ship, neutral ground. We can discuss the terms of peaceful coexistence between our species." The pause was short at this time. "Agreed, Captain Chen. But understand this human intelligence and adaptability you've displayed has been noted. The Empire will be watching your species with great interest." As the two fleets maintained their cautious distance, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this first contact would have consequences far beyond what anyone could imagine. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy, and the galaxy was taking notice. The price of underestimation. The meeting took place aboard a small, neutral station that the Zephyrians had deployed between the two fleets. Sarah Chen walked through the airlocks, accompanied by Dr. Patterson and Lieutenant Commander Webb, while Admiral Kethvar brought his own entourage of advisors and guards. The Zephyrian admiral was impressive in person, standing nearly 8 feet tall with plates that caught the light like polished obsidian. His forearms moved with practiced grace, and his large, multifaceted eyes seemed to take in every detail of the human delegation. Captain Chen, Kethvar's voice was translated through small devices worn by both parties. You are smaller than I expected for one who commands such respect from your crew. Sarah smiled. In our experience, Admiral, the size of the person matters less than the size of their ideas. The negotiations began cautiously, with both sides probing for advantages and weaknesses. The Zephyrians were clearly accustomed to dealing with species that either submitted immediately or fought futilely against overwhelming force. Humans, it seemed, were an entirely new category. Your species intrigues me, Kethvar admitted after an hour of discussion. You show no fear of our superior numbers, yet you do not display the blind aggression we've seen in other warrior races. How do you reconcile this? Dr. Patterson stepped forward. Admiral, humans learned long ago that the most dangerous opponent is often the one who appears least threatening. We don't fear superior numbers because we've learned to fight differently. Elaborate. Sarah exchanged glances with her companions. How much should they reveal? Too little, and the Zephyrians might still consider humans an easy target. Too much, and they might be seen as a threat to be eliminated. We've never had the luxury of overwhelming technological superiority, Sarah said carefully. Throughout our history, we've had to be creative, adaptable, and willing to take calculated risks. We've learned to turn our enemies' strengths against them. Admiral Kethvar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. You speak as if you've already devised strategies for fighting us. We've devised strategies for fighting anyone, Webb said bluntly. It's what we do, but we'd prefer to avoid fighting altogether. The truth was that during the tense hours of their standoff, Arya had been working tirelessly to analyze the Zephyrian fleet's weaknesses. The AI had identified 17 critical vulnerabilities, from their reliance on centralized command structures to their predictable tactical doctrines. Sarah's crew had developed contingency plans for scenarios ranging from diplomatic failure to full-scale warfare. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from Kethvar's flagship. The Admiral's expression grew dark as he listened to the report. It seems our meeting has attracted unwanted attention, he said grimly. A rival Imperial faction has arrived in the system. They will not be as diplomatic as I have been. Sarah felt the familiar ice of combat tension in her veins. How many ships? 37 vessels under the command of War Commander Zektul. He views any negotiation with unknown species as weakness. He will demand your immediate surrender or destruction. The view screen in the meeting room showed the approaching fleet, their ships sleeker and more aggressive-looking than Kethvar's forces. These were not exploration vessels or patrol ships. These were pure instruments of war. Captain, Dr. Patterson said quietly, our stealth systems won't work against that many ships. They'll be able to coordinate their sensors to track us. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. The Defiance was alone, facing 54 alien warships with technology decades ahead of Earth's. By any reasonable measure, they were about to be annihilated. Admiral, she said to Kethvar, what are your intentions? The Zephyrian commander's response surprised her. War Commander Zektul is my rival, not my ally. His arrival here is no coincidence. He seeks to undermine my authority by demonstrating that I failed to handle a simple first contact situation. So you're caught between us and them, indeed. If I fight beside you, I risk being branded a traitor to the Empire. If I stand aside, I appear weak and ineffective. Sarah made a decision that would have seemed insane to military strategists back on Earth. Admiral, I propose a third option. Stand aside, but observe. Let us show you what humans can do when cornered. Kethvar's eyes widened. You would face Sek'Tool's fleet alone. We would face any threat to our survival, Sarah replied. But we wouldn't face it stupidly. The human delegation returned to the Defiance as the enemy fleet approached. Sarah's crew moved with the efficiency of veterans, but she could see the tension in their faces. They were about to attempt something that had never been tried in human history. Arya initiates Protocol 7, Sarah commanded as she took her position on the bridge. Protocol 7 confirmed. Captain, all systems standing by. Lieutenant Commander Webb looked confused. Captain, Protocol 7 isn't in our standard playbook. Sarah smiled. That's because I just made it up. Arya, transmit the following message on all frequencies. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiance. We are peaceful explorers, but we will defend ourselves against any aggressor. We offer one opportunity for peaceful withdrawal. The response was immediate and contemptuous. Human insects, you will surrender immediately or be destroyed. I am War Commander Sek'Tool of the Imperial War Fleet. Your primitive vessel cannot stand against the might of the Empire. Arya, analysis of their fleet composition. 37 vessels, Captain, heavy cruisers, battle frigates, and 3 dreadnought-class ships. Combined firepower exceeds our defensive capabilities by a factor of approximately 400 to 1. Sarah's smile never wavered. Excellent. Let's show them why humans became the dominant species on a world that was actively trying to kill them. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The Defiance didn't flee, didn't surrender, and didn't charge suicidally into the enemy formation. Instead, it simply vanished. Advanced human stealth technology, developed through decades of warfare in the asteroid belts and outer planets, made the ship effectively invisible to Zephyrian sensors. But that was only the beginning. Arya deployed the Ghosts. Hidden in the Defiance's cargo bay were 37 small drones, each one designed to mimic the energy signature of a human starship. As they spread out through the battlefield, sensors suddenly showed not one human vessel, but 38. Impossible, the War Commander snarled. Where did they get reinforcements? His tactical officer was equally confused. Sir, the energy readings are consistent with human technology, but the deployment pattern is unlike anything in our databases. From 38 different positions, the voice of Captain Sarah Chen spoke simultaneously. War Commander, you are surrounded. Your ships are outnumbered and outmaneuvered. I offer you one final opportunity to withdraw peacefully. Sek'Tool's response was to order a full attack on all human signatures. Plasma bolts filled space as the Zephyrian fleet fired, on targets that existed only in their sensors. But the humans had anticipated this reaction. Asterisk. Each drone was equipped with advanced defensive systems. As the Zephyrians fired, the drones recorded the exact energy signatures, timing, and targeting patterns of their weapons. This data was instantly transmitted to the Defiance, where Arya processed it at superhuman speed. Captain, Arya reported, enemy weapon systems analyzed, predictive firing patterns established, implementing countermeasures. What followed was a masterpiece of human ingenuity. The Defiance, still invisible. 2 enemy sensors began systematically targeting the Zephyrian fleet's weak points. Not their weapons or shields, but their communication arrays, their sensor networks, their coordination systems. One by one, Zechtel's ships found themselves blind and isolated. They could still fight, but they couldn't coordinate their attacks or share targeting data. The organized Imperial fleet began to fracture into individual vessels, each fighting desperately against an enemy they couldn't see. "This is impossible," Zechtel screamed over the communication channels. "No single ship can defeat an entire fleet." Sarah's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "You're right, War Commander. No single ship could defeat your fleet in a straight fight, but we're not fighting you straight. We're fighting you smart." The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 17 minutes. By the end, 12 Zephyrian ships had been disabled by precisely targeted attacks on their critical systems. The rest of the fleet was in complete disarray. Their crews panicked and their command structure shattered. Admiral Kethvar, watching from his position outside the battle zone, was stunned. In less than 20 minutes, a single human vessel had demonstrated tactics that made his species' military doctrine look primitive. "War Commander Zechtel," Sarah's voice cut through the chaos, "you have two choices. You can continue this fight and lose more ships, or you can accept that you've underestimated humanity and withdraw with what remains of your fleet." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Zechtel's voice came through the communication channels, subdued and shaken. "Human... What are you? We are the species that survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and the hostile environment of our own world," Sarah replied. "We are the species that learned to adapt, to overcome, to turn disadvantage into advantage. We are humanity, and we are no longer alone in the universe." The Zeftian war fleet began its withdrawal, their pride shattered along with their tactical certainty. As they departed, Admiral Kethvar's voice came through on a private channel. "Captain Chen, I believe my empire has made a grave error in judgment. We have treated humanity as primitives to be conquered or ignored. But you have shown us that intelligence and adaptability can overcome raw power." Sarah reappeared on the main view screen as the Defiance's stealth systems powered down. "Admiral, we've shown you what humans can do when threatened, but we've also shown you what we prefer to do when given the choice. We offered peace first, and we offer it again now. You would negotiate with us after this demonstration. We would negotiate with anyone willing to treat us as equals," Sarah replied. "Strength earns respect, but wisdom earns trust. We hope to earn both." The aftermath of the battle changed everything. Word of humanity's tactical victory spread through the Zephyrian Empire like wildfire. The species that had seemed primitive and helpless had defeated a war fleet using nothing but cunning and technology that the Empire had dismissed as inferior. Emperor Zekvith himself sent a message to the human fleet, to the humans of the soul. "System, the Zephyrian Empire recognizes your species as equals and requests formal diplomatic relations. We have learned that wisdom comes in many forms, and we would benefit from learning your perspectives." As the Defiance began its journey back to Earth, Sarah Chen stood again at the observation deck, watching the stars. They seemed different. Now, no longer distant and cold, but full of possibility. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe and proven that intelligence, creativity, and determination could overcome any obstacle. Captain Dr. Patterson joined her at the viewport. "The implications of what we've accomplished here are staggering. We've not just made first contact, we've established humanity as a power to be respected." Sarah nodded. "But more importantly, we've shown that power doesn't have to mean domination. We've proven that intelligence can triumph over brute force, that creativity can overcome technological disadvantage, and that sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make your enemy realize they don't want to fight you. As the Defiance jumped to hyperspace, carrying news of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage, Sarah Chen smiled. The universe was vast and full of challenges, but humans had never backed down from a challenge. They had always found a way to adapt, to overcome, to turn their disadvantages into strengths. The galaxy had just learned what it meant to underestimate humanity. It was a lesson that would not be forgotten.